Hola, ¿cómo estás? Nosotros estamos de vuelta de México. In other words, hello, how are you? We are back from Mexico. While in Mexico, we successfully secured 3 years of temporary residency. And if you've been with us from the beginning, then you'll know that securing Mexican residency and moving to Mexico to live a simpler life in retirement is what this channel originally started as. If you haven't seen my previous videos on how to start the Mexican residency process and what to do to exchange the sticker in your passport for a residency card, I will link some videos below. But in this video, I'm going to share with you details on what is needed to renew temporary Mexican residency in 2026. Okay, so renewing your temporary Mexican residency in 2026, there's been some changes since we first started down this process. And this is just our experience at the INM in Cancun, working with a facilitator. If you're going to go through this process, you may have a different experience depending on which INM office that you're renewing through, and if you are doing this on your own or with a facilitator. As I've mentioned in my past videos, we are members of the Mexico Relocation Guide, which is a paid lifetime membership of $500 that we did back in 2024. So Mariana runs the Mexico Relocation Guide, and she has a lot of free resources and videos if you don't want to purchase the guide. But for us, the guide provided access to private Facebook groups, as well as trusted contacts throughout Mexico, such as immigration specialists and moving services. The contacts and the private Facebook group, they have been a tremendous help to us. And I don't think that we would have been able to get our temporary residency on our own. Our facilitator used to work for the INM and knows all of the ins and outs of what is needed to obtain residency in Mexico. Unfortunately, because of the guide's restrictions, I cannot share our facilitator's name. With that said, I contacted our facilitator back in, I think it was early February, as our 1-year temporary residency, it was expiring at the end of March 2026. So during 2025, we only went to Mexico one time, and that was to obtain our 1-year temporary residency. I will do a separate video on coming back into the country and what you need to know and do when you're a resident entering and exiting Mexico. Let's talk cost first. So if you're thinking about moving to Mexico, you need to know this. Residency just got a lot more expensive. In 2025, to complete your canje at the INM office in Mexico, this is after you've already started the initial process in your country of origin. A 1-year temporary residency initial cost and renewal was 5,328 pesos, or roughly $300 USD. In 2026, it is now 11,141 pesos, or around $600 USD per person. And it gets worse. A 3-year renewal in 2025 was 10,112 pesos, which is roughly $550 per person USD. In 2026, it jumped to 21,143 pesos. That's almost $1,200 per person. So basically, fees have doubled in 2026. Are you ready for the kicker? It's not guaranteed that you will be approved for 3-year residency if that's what you're going for. In fact, you may only get 1 more year. And chances are, if you're not living in Mexico at the time of renewal, you may only be approved for 1 more year. After your initial 1-year temporary residency approval, you can renew for 1, 2, or 3 years. We asked for 3 years to give us time to travel to Mexico and figure out where we want to live. Going to Mexico in March each year, which is peak spring break time, it is so expensive. If you saw my last video, then you know that our plane tickets alone for both of us going nonstop on JetBlue from Tampa to Cancun, round trip, was like $2,500. Thank goodness we had built up our points on our visa the year before, and it handled the bulk of our plane cost. But Don and I didn't want to keep having to go back year after year and pay that insane travel cost just to renew our visas. Our facilitator told us a day before our appointment that the Cancun INM By law, it is not mandatory that the INM grant you 3-year residency renewal. It is the prerogative of the immigration authority. 1 out of every 8 cases in 2026 was approved for a 3-year residency renewal. And the common denominator is that immigration checks to see if you're actually living in the country, not just coming in for renewal. It is luck of the draw whether you are given 1 year or 3 years. We got lucky and we were approved for 3 more years of residency. Remember when you only had to prove economic solvency once when you were applying for residency in your home country? Well, guess what? That was another change in 2026. If you are still working like we are, you have to prove economic solvency again. Since we are both still working, this meant bringing 3 months of bank statements showing consistent income over those 3 months from your employer. At the end of 2024, when we first applied for residency at the Orlando consulate, the economic solvency requirement was $4,400 per month net income. It is now $5,100 per month. And if you remember, Don was socking away a lot of his money into his 401k account. So I ended up sponsoring him in December 2024 and again in 2026, even though he more than qualified on his own. In 2025, the sponsor requirement was $5,400 to $5,800 per month net income. That's for you and the person that you're sponsoring. So if you were sponsoring a spouse in 2025, you needed to prove that you made $4,400 per month net income plus around $1,200 to $1,400 more for your spouse. In 2026, to sponsor a spouse, you need your base net income of $5,100 plus an extra $1,300 to $1,500 more for your spouse. So for a couple, you need to be making around $6,500 a month net income to qualify. When we go permanent, I won't have an income anymore, and Don will have to sponsor me. If he has to prove economic solvency when we go permanent, he'll have to show monthly Social Security withdrawals plus money and savings, which is why this year is all about socking away as much money as we can into our savings accounts. Okay, so Don and I got to the INM office in Cancun around 10:30 in the morning. My appointment was at 11:30 and Don's was at 2:30. Our facilitator showed up a few minutes later and then it started to pour. You wait outside and you sit on these metal benches, which had been rearranged since our last visit. They all face the front of the building now. But once it started pouring, everyone huddled toward the front of the building. Luckily, there is a roof over the seating area, but the rain was pouring in sideways. You wait until either your name is called if you have an appointment or your number is called. So they hand out numbers when they first open. I was called in first at my appointment time, and I had to sign in and then take a seat inside the INM office. Unfortunately, I couldn't film inside the INM. In fact, you can't use your cell phones at all once you're inside. And I learned that the hard way when I was checking the conversion rate on my phone, and I was told to put it away. Every so often, a government official would remind everyone to just put their phones away. So the inside of the Cancun INM, it kind of looks like a DMV. And I believe that they had 9 partitioned glassed windows. So after you sign in, you take a seat on the metal benches. Only this time there were these thin individual cushions. There are 7, I believe 7 metal benches total in the room. And the room is split with 3 metal benches on one side, 3 on the other, all facing the front of the office. Each bench can seat 4 people. There's an extra bench that's positioned kind of perpendicular to the other benches. So how it works is that once you are escorted to your seat after signing in, you move in this weaving snake-like fashion. So Don was called in shortly after me, even though his appointment was later. I had asked the day before if it was possible to get in together, so I guess our facilitator was able to make that happen. And Don and I waited on those benches for 2 hours. When we were called up, I went to one agent and then Don went to another agent's window. Our facilitator had arranged all of our paperwork in a manila folder, and I handed my folder to the agent. My folder consisted of my application for the 3-year residency, plus all the stuff that I had last year, which was my one and the same person affidavit, our apostilled marriage certificate, and the Spanish translation of the marriage certificate, which we paid for last year, and copies of our passport. In addition, I handed over my 1-year temporary residency card and my passport. And just like last year, hardly anything was said between the agent and myself. We had to sign our full legal names on a couple pieces of paper and then pay for the 3-year residency using our credit card. Our agents motioned to the credit card machine just like last year, and our paperwork was then brought to a supervisor for review, which probably took about a few minutes before the agent started hand stamping the pages. We were then told to go wait outside for our names to be called again. Dawn was called in first for the biometrics portion. So Dawn and I were both asked a series of questions. And I think because I was the sponsor, I was asked a lot more questions than he was. When you're called in for biometrics, you are escorted by an agent to the back end of the office, which has several desks. You sit down with the agent and you answer questions. And my first question was if I had a religion. I said no, but that I was raised Catholic. I was asked what my height and weight are in metric units, which I didn't know. So he said, okay, what is it in feet and pounds? I was asked what my country of origin is. Do I work? What do I do for a living? Who do I work for? What level of education I have? Will I be working in Mexico? What my net monthly salary is, and if I have any tattoos and where are they located? And Don was asked if he was retired and when he plans to retire. He was not asked nearly the amount of questions that I was asked. We both had our 3 months of bank statements with us, but that was never looked at. They just wanted to know what my net monthly income is. Once the interview is done, you look into this little camera and they take your picture. Just like last year, I had to pull my bangs away from my face. Don't smile. Don't wear any earrings. He then took side profile pictures and fingerprints. So 4 fingers on each hand and then the thumbs together. And then I signed a couple pieces of paper, wrote my name and date, and then the agent went to the printer to retrieve my new 3-year temporary residency card. He kept the old one. All of our original paperwork was also returned to us. So once we were done, we headed outside again, and our facilitator was notified, and he provided us an official electronic notification of our renewals. He sent that through WhatsApp. Our temporary residency expires at the end of March 2029, and the entire process of renewing our Mexican temporary residency, I think it took around 3.5 hours. Don and I went to the same taco place to celebrate with fish tacos and margaritas. Leave me a comment below if you have any additional questions about the Mexican visa renewal process. I have a lot more content to bring you about where we stayed and what we did during our week-long stay in Mexico in 2026. Remember to like and subscribe, por favor. Hasta luego, amigos.